Let's understand what are visibilities in Solidity. Now, Solidity has a couple of keywords which you can use to specify a functional visibility, right? So what now, first thing first, let's try to understand what is visibility. Now, visibility can be understood as that these are essentially a certain type of keywords which are used to access your function, because you essentially put these keywords in your functions, and by putting these keywords, someone can access your keywords and do a lot of other stuff, right? So these are categorized or can be categorized into four categories. These are of four types. Understand each of them one by one. Let's say make a string right now of name, right? And then what I tend to do, let's add a function, and let's say get your name, and we want to access this name right over here. Now first we need to we able to not access the function name right over here. We need to first specify view, because we need to accessing the state variable in our function, hence we need to add view right over here. Then we need to add returns, because this is a string. We need to add a returns right over here, and this returns a string in the memory. Then you can add a return of name, right? So now it's working. Yeah, so now it's giving us if we compile the contract from here, and you will see it's not giving us an error. The error states that you didn't specify visibility in a contract, right? So let's say right now we need to specify a visibility. Now we can write visibility anywhere. Let's say we can add visibility right over here. Let's say if I add public and then compile the contract, now it's compiled successfully, right? So this is the first type of visibility, which is known as public, right? The public essentially means that while we using public, we can able to call the contract from outside and inside, right? So we can, by using public keyword, we can call the contract from outside and inside. Cool, right? So we can use that to essentially call the contract from outside and inside. Let's say compile this, deploy, and if we look at this, now we'll be able to see this get name function, right? So this doesn't return anything because we haven't specified anything right over here. If I just say right over here, let's say my name, and the compile the contract, and compile this and deploy this again, and now if we expand this, see, now it's giving us a name, right? So hence we can specify, or we can essentially use public visibility, functional visibility in our contract. Now this is the example of first. Let's say if I make a private right over here, right? Now private is essentially so when we use private is also another type of visibility in your Solidity. It's essentially the most restricted visibility, and only can be called from inside the contract. We can't call it from outside the contract, right? So let's say if I make this private, right? Let's say add most restricted right? It's the most restrictive visibility, and we can able to call this from can be called from inside. Let's say let's say we can add can be called from inside the contract, right? So we call it from inside the contract, but no outside, not from outside the contract, right? So yeah, so we can use that from this. And now if we compile the contract and then deploy this, and if I expand this, we will see, if I just expand right over here, we will see there is nothing function, there is no function right over here, right? Now when I say internal, when I say essentially from inside the contract, we can just use this from inside the contract, right? Now this deploy variable, now this deployment environment is not not an inside the contract, so essentially the outside contract development environment. So the deploy contract can be visible as an external host, so hence we aren't able to see a contract right over here, right? So that's the use case of a private keyword. Now let's move on and understand about external. I will let you know about this internal afterward. Let's say first thing first, let's move on to understand what is external. Now external keyword can be called from so let's say, where am I? Yeah, my keyboard is almost going to die. Yeah, so the external keyword, so now let's say expand this thing. Yeah, so if I remove this and add an external keyword, right? If I use external keyword, the external keyword can only be called from outside the smart contract, as the name suggests. We can only be able to call it from outside the contract. Now then what's the difference between any other? So if I also calling this from outside the contract, then what's the main difference between public and external? Now when I use external, right? Now external keyword, when I use external, we can't call it inside, right? It only be callable from outside the contract. Let's say I can even add a line over here, can be called from outside the contract but can't be called from a inside the contract, right? So that's how we can use external keyword. And let's say if I just deploy this, it's work the same. Let's say if I deploy the contract, you will see now we're able to see this get name, and if I expand this, we will be able to see this my name right over here. Now the public keyword can be called from inside as well as outside, right? We can easily call it from inside and outside. Now when I use external, if I ever try to call this internal function again, let's say make another function, of set your name, and let's say add a string right over here. This string is going to be a memory of underscore name, and let's say add external keyword right over here. And then if I now specify this name to our name, now you will see, okay, yeah, so we need to specify view right away because we access in the state and view. That's working fine. Now the main problem right over here is essentially so now if I call this if I just essentially call this get name function, and just okay, now you will see there is an error that states that cannot be called, right? So get name is not yet visible to this point, right? Because this is essentially essentially function which can be called from outside the contract, but we can't call it from inside. We can't call it in the function. Hence that's the usability of this contract, usability of this keyword. Let's move ahead and understand about this internal, right? Now internal type, internal usability is essentially the same. Let's say I will let you know about this internal right now, that the internal one, let's say we can access it by using this internal keyword. Let's say add internal, right? And let's say add a internal keyword right over here. Now what this internal meant, that it can only be callable, it can only be called from inside the contract, and we can easily inherit this internal from so if we have multiple contract in our folder, in our file, we can easily inherit from one contract to another contract. What's the use of inheritance? Now inheritance is essentially used to extend the functionality of a contract. Let's say I will let you know about this inheritance by this taking this example. So this is essentially an example of inheritance. Let's say we have this contract A that right over here, and now we can able to use this B contract as A contract, right? So we can use this B contract as an A contract by using its subparts, right? So we can also access the C contract as a contract functions, right? So we can use that right over here. Cool. So that's how we can use internal keyword in our contract. Let's say we can add specify right over here. Go and use that. So these are the three types, or we can say variables, visibilities in Solidity. I hope that this video makes sense. Just smash the like button if you like this video. I will see you in the next video.